So today I'm going to try something a little bit different. As I'm speaking, you're going to see things appear here, hopefully, assuming the technology works. Over the past few days, if you've been watching my videos, you'll see that I have spoken a lot about managing the basic foundational things in fitness, training, nutrition, rest, recovery, and those things that get pushed to the side in favor of the more advanced, the more exciting stuff. You can toy around with the advanced tactics once these things are in place, but so many people that we work with, when they come into the virtual doors of Propane Fitness, are missing these things. So I'm going to try and synthesize this into something that you can hopefully take away today and apply right away. So what are the basics? If your goal is fat loss, your goal is muscle gain, if your goal is just performance, these things all need to be in place and managed. So number one, that is a calorie level that is managed and maintained. That may be a calorie deficit or a calorie surplus, whatever is in line with your goal, with a sufficient protein intake. Now, what does sufficient protein intake mean? There are different opinions all over the internet, but the consensus from the data from guys like Eric Helms and Menno Henselmans, who've really dug into the research, seems to be around 1.8 grams per kilo to get the best from a physiological recovery protein synthesis perspective. But you can have more than that if you find that you get benefits from satiety or enjoyment or convenience. So sufficient protein intake to recover from training, to ensure sufficient resources to grow and adapt to the work that you're doing in the gym. You also need to consider with your diet, not the carb timing, not the supplementation, not the more advanced stuff. You need to be thinking about satiety. So how full, how satisfied do I feel when I eat, and from the meals, from how I arrange my day. If you're always feeling hungry, if you're always feeling deprived, that's not an enjoyable way to live your life. So that leads through into enjoyment. Do you actually like the way that you eat? Do you enjoy your diet? If not, again, how long are you going to be able to stick to that? Probably not very long. And then finally, you need to consider convenience and affordability. If everything that you're doing means that you need to go into a dingy, dark Tupperware bag every few hours to pull out some lukewarm chicken and cold rice, that's not very convenient to your lifestyle. It doesn't allow you to balance your diet with the rest of your life. And if it costs you more than your rent or more than your mortgage to pay for your diet, again, you're not going to stick to that for very long. So a calorie balanced diet, and that what I mean by that is the calorie level, the total calorie intake is matched to your goal with sufficient protein, managing satiety, enjoyment, convenience, and affordability. So that's diet out the way. Those are the basics. Training. So we need a training program that is progressively planned. What do I mean by that? Well, it simply means that every session, every week, every month, every mesocycle, whatever the time frame, we should be aiming to do more work than we've done previously. This creates the adaptation that we want, whether it be strength, muscle, or preserving muscle. We should always have this focus on doing more. Do more reps, more sets, more weight, in less time, whatever. It doesn't matter as long as there's some kind of progression planned into what you're doing. If you're just doing the same weights, the same exercises in the same way, you're not going to adapt as well as you could from the work that you're doing and the time that you're investing. We also need to consider with training these other really, really important things that obviously should be matched to your goal. So if you're trying to train for a triathlon and all you're doing is one rep max squats, again, that's not really balanced, and you probably intuitively understand stuff like that. But you should also consider, what does your lifestyle look like? If you're really busy at work and you're trying to train twice a day, probably not going to work. And you should also consider your desire, how often do you want to train? What sort of things do you find interesting? How do you enjoy spending your time in the gym? All these things with both training and diet, in terms of how you actually feel about it, are really, really important. So to recap then on training, you need a progressively planned training model or training plan that's encouraging you and driving you to do more every week, month, whatever. And then you need to consider your lifestyle and your desire for training, and it needs to be matched to whatever your goal is. So now we've covered all of nutrition and all of training. It's pretty simple, right? But you need to be managing these basics. So what are the other things? What are the other aspects? Well, we like to encourage everyone to try and get at least 7 hours of sleep. It's the keystone habit for managing your recovery. And if you aren't doing that consistently, you're leaving a lot on the table in terms of what you could be getting out of your diet and your training. If you ever had 5 hours of sleep on a particular day and then try to manage your hunger the next day, it's much harder. If you try to train with the same intensity, it's much harder. If you're trying to exercise the same level of discipline and willpower, it's much harder. So getting 7 hours of sleep is just an easy win and an easy way to start the day kind of on a good footing rather than one step behind, one step of a disadvantage. So 7 hours of sleep, and with that, you should always be considering the actual time you spend asleep. So am I in bed for 8 hours but keep waking up every 2 hours to go to the toilet? Like, am I actually getting 7 hours of sleep, the total time? You should consider your routine around sleep. So just like you have a workout warm-up or maybe a cool down, you want to have the same thing with sleep. You want to ideally have an evening ritual and a morning ritual to sort of wind you down and wind you up again for the beginning of the day. And then also do what you can to maximize the intensity of your sleep. So are you sleeping in a dark room? Are you looking at your phone right before you go to bed? Are you checking Facebook during the night? That kind of thing. Stuff that you're probably guilty of that you don't really want to admit. But all those things drop the intensity. So even if you're managing your time and you're getting 7 hours in bed, but you're doing all the stuff to have just really light sleep and you're still feeling tired in the morning, you could be getting a lot more out of that time. And maybe 6.5 hours of really deep, intense sleep is better than 7.5 hours of light sleep. So 7 hours of sleep, 7 hours of total sleep per night to maximize your recovery, and consider time, routine, and intensity. And then the last one, which is a bit weird and not very tangible and not something I can really give you advice specifically on, but just having time in your day to de-stress and disconnect from your normal life. So to manage your total stress levels and also to just add balance in your life. If all we're worrying about and all we're thinking about is our diet and our training, and we don't have any time to spend with friends and family and just time to forget about this stuff occasionally, it can start to become overwhelming and it can start to just be the only thing in your life. So ensuring that you have balance in any fitness pursuit is really, really important, especially if you're going for extreme levels of performance. And what I mean by that is you're trying to get to a really low level of body fat or achieve a really ambitious marathon-based goal, or maybe you want to compete in powerlifting or strongman or something like that. All of these things require temporary an unbalancing of your life to get to that extreme performance. So make sure that you have time in your day and in your week to just balance things out again. Spend time with loved ones, spend time doing stuff that isn't fitness related, that isn't diet related. And maybe that means having some time away from being in a calorie deficit as well. So those are the 4 areas. I've covered nutrition, I've covered training, rest and recovery, and then just a brief lifestyle habit or lifestyle thing to manage as well. So those are the basics. Those are the things that you need to manage. And hopefully, if the technology has worked, that's all there for you to watch. Hopefully this has helped. If you like this kind of content, if this has helped you, I'd love if you could hit share, like, comment, let me know what you think, and I will speak to you soon.